Imagine this. You've spent your entire life trying to be enough for others to be liked, accepted, and loved. You gave and gave until there was nothing left for yourself. But one day, you wake up and realize the one person you never learned to love was the one staring back at you in the mirror. We live in a world that teaches us how to impress, but not how to accept ourselves, how to achieve, but not how to rest in who we already are. You were born whole, yet somehow, along the way, you started believing you were incomplete. Loving yourself isn't arrogance. It's returning home. It's the moment you stop apologizing for existing and start appreciating your own soul. When you begin to see yourself not through judgment, but through kindness, something extraordinary happens. Your energy shifts, your relationships transform, your confidence grows silently, without the need for validation. So today, let's take that journey inward to the heart of who you are. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering the person you've always been. Because when you truly learn to love yourself, everything in your world begins to love you back. Chapter 1. The Forgotten Art of Loving Yourself. Somewhere along the way, you learned that loving yourself was selfish, that humility meant shrinking, that kindness meant pleasing, that peace meant silence. You began pouring into others, hoping they'd fill what you neglected within. But self-love was never arrogance, it was balance. It was remembering that you, too, deserve the care you keep giving away. The world teaches you to chase love, not to build it within. You learn to impress, not to accept. You seek mirrors instead of roots, hoping someone else's reflection will make you whole. But real love, the kind that sustains, begins when you no longer search for it in others' eyes. It begins when you see yourself clearly for the first time. Loving yourself is not a luxury, it's a responsibility, because every relationship you build stems from the one you have with yourself. When that foundation is cracked with self-doubt, insecurity, or guilt, everything you touch carries that same instability. Healing yourself is not selfish, it's preparation for genuine love. You forgot how to love yourself the moment you started earning worth through performance. You learned to measure value through productivity, appearance, or validation. But you are not a resume. You are a soul. The art of self-love is remembering that being is enough, even when doing nothing. There's a quiet strength in looking at yourself without judgment. Most people avoid mirrors because they fear the reflection, but self-love means standing before your flaws without flinching. It's saying, I see you, all of you, and I choose to love you anyway. That's how peace begins, not in perfection, but in permission. The forgotten art of loving yourself lies in small moments, saying no without guilt, resting without apology, forgiving without resentment. It's in those subtle acts of self-honoring that your energy begins to shift. You stop begging for love and start radiating it. You were born knowing how to love yourself. Watch a child unfiltered, curious, full of wonder. They dance without music, speak without fear, rest without shame. Somewhere between childhood and adulthood, that innocence was replaced by comparison. Loving yourself is simply returning to what was never lost, only forgotten. Self-love is a rebellion in a world built on insecurity. You are constantly told what you lack, what to fix, buy, or chase. The moment you stop believing those lies, the world loses its control over you. The loudest revolution is quiet self-acceptance. You cannot love yourself and constantly betray yourself. Every time you say yes when your soul screams no, you erode trust with yourself. Love is built on integrity, keeping promises to your own heart. Without that, self-love becomes theory, not truth. Loving yourself means holding space for both your darkness and your light. You cannot heal by rejecting the parts of you that hurt. Wholeness comes from integration, not avoidance. Your scars are not ugly, they're the signature of survival. The art of self-love is also the art of boundaries. You stop letting people define your worth or drain your energy. You understand that protecting your peace is not cruelty, it's clarity. The people meant for you will never require you to abandon yourself to keep them. Forgiveness is one of the purest forms of self-love. Not just forgiving others, but forgiving yourself for trusting too much, for waiting too long, for breaking your own heart trying to please someone else. Every act of self-forgiveness reopens the door to peace. To love yourself deeply, you must learn to sit with discomfort. Growth is not always gentle. It requires you to face your insecurities, question your patterns, and release what no longer serves you. True self-love is not comfort, it's courage. The forgotten art of loving yourself also means redefining beauty. It's no longer about symmetry or approval, but about energy, the way your presence feels when you are at peace with yourself. Real beauty radiates from acceptance, not admiration. When you start loving yourself, life becomes lighter, not because the challenges disappear, but because your relationship with them changes. You stop seeing pain as punishment and start recognizing it as guidance. Self-love transforms suffering into understanding. Loving yourself teaches patience. You realize that not every season demands perfection. Some seasons only ask that you rest, breathe, and trust. You no longer rush your healing because you understand flowers don't bloom faster by pulling their petals open. When you love yourself, you no longer chase closure from others. You stop needing apologies that never come. You become your own comfort. The validation that once enslaved you becomes irrelevant because your worth is now self-sustained. The forgotten art of loving yourself is found in stillness. It's the ability to be alone without feeling empty. When your own company feels like peace, you stop fearing solitude and start embracing serenity. That's when you realize you were never truly lonely, just disconnected from yourself. You become unstoppable when your love for yourself is unconditional. You stop measuring worth through success or failure. You stop needing to prove anything. You begin to move from fullness, not lack. Self-love becomes your natural state, not a practice, but a presence. And in the end, loving yourself is not about ego, it's about freedom. It's choosing truth over performance, peace over perfection, and authenticity over approval. It's remembering that you are already enough, already whole, already worthy, exactly as you are. Chapter 2. Why self-worth comes before love. Before love can heal you, it must find you whole. Without self-worth, love turns into dependency, and care turns into control. You start confusing attention with affection, validation with value. Self-worth is not pride, it's the soil that allows love to grow without suffocation. When you don't know your worth, love becomes negotiation. You accept less because you believe you are less. Every relationship becomes a mirror for your insecurities, reflecting back the parts of yourself you've refused to honor. Real love cannot thrive in the absence of self-respect. Self-worth is the foundation that determines how you allow others to treat you. When you undervalue yourself, you unconsciously invite those who will too. But when you know your worth, you stop auditioning for love, you start attracting it naturally. Most heartbreak doesn't come from being unloved. It comes from loving without boundaries. You pour endlessly into others because deep down, you're afraid they'll leave if you stop. But love that depends on your exhaustion isn't love, it's emotional debt. You can't receive what you don't believe you deserve. The universe can offer you abundance, but if your inner dialogue says, "I'm not enough," you'll reject it every time. Self-worth is not given. It's reclaimed through awareness, acceptance, and accountability. Without self-worth, love feels like walking on glass, every step cautious, every word filtered, every silence terrifying. You constantly wonder if you've done enough, been enough, loved enough. But when you value yourself, peace replaces panic. You stop chasing reassurance because your worth no longer depends on it. The reason self-worth comes before love is simple. You teach others how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you constantly settle, explain, or overgive, you tell the world you're available for disrespect. But when you respect yourself deeply, you naturally raise the standard for everyone who enters your life. Self-worth is not loud, it's steady. It's not arrogance, it's assurance. It doesn't demand attention, it radiates certainty. It's the energy that says, I will not shrink to fit small spaces without needing to prove anything to anyone. Many chase love to escape loneliness, not realizing that loneliness disappears the moment self-worth grows. When you feel whole, love becomes a choice, not a cure. You no longer seek someone to complete you, but someone to complement you. You cannot build healthy love on a foundation of insecurity. Insecurity makes you doubt every word, every silence, every delay. Self-worth brings patience, clarity, and calm. You begin to understand that love without peace is not love, it's attachment. When you don't value yourself, you mistake intensity for intimacy. You equate chaos with passion. But real love feels safe, not suffocating. It expands you, not confines you. Self-worth allows you to recognize the difference. You find self-worth in honesty, in confronting your fears, your patterns, your pain. You stop blaming others for what you continuously allow. Growth begins when you stop chasing love that costs you self-respect. Healing begins when you choose peace over approval. The moment you realize your worth, your standards shift. You stop begging for clarity, stop chasing closure, stop explaining your boundaries. You start walking away not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. Self-worth teaches you patience. It whispers, what's meant for you will align effortlessly. You stop forcing connections and start trusting timing. Desperation fades, and in its place grows faith in yourself, in love, in life. The love you attract after healing will feel different. It won't come with confusion or anxiety. It will feel peaceful, consistent, mutual, because when you love yourself, you no longer entertain what drains you. Your energy becomes selective, and your heart becomes safe. Self-worth allows you to be alone without feeling unworthy. You stop seeing solitude as lack and start seeing it as space, a sacred pause to reconnect with yourself. In that stillness, you realize you were never hard to love. You were just loving in the wrong direction. Without self-worth, you give love to prove you're worthy of receiving it. But when you value yourself, you give love because it overflows. Your love becomes pure, generous, and free, not a transaction for attention, but an expression of abundance. Self-worth changes everything. It turns heartbreak into lessons, rejection into redirection, loneliness into discovery. It's not something you find once and keep. It's something you choose every day by how you speak to yourself and what you tolerate. And in the end, self-worth is the purest form of love because it teaches you that you were never broken, only unrecognized. When you remember your worth, you stop chasing love that costs you peace. You begin to attract love that feels like home. Chapter 3. How Comparison Destroys Confidence. Comparison is the silent thief of peace. It creeps in quietly when you scroll through someone's highlight reel, when you hear about their success, when you start wondering why you're not there yet. It whispers that you're behind, that you're not enough. And before you realize it, confidence turns into self-doubt. Gratitude turns into envy. The problem with comparison is that it blinds you to your own progress. You stop noticing how far you've come because you're too busy measuring how far someone else has gone. You forget that every journey has its own timeline, that every soul blooms in its own season. Confidence grows in authenticity, but comparison kills authenticity. When you start imitating others, you silence your own voice. You begin to wear masks that don't fit and wonder why peace never follows. You can't build confidence while pretending to be someone else. The root of comparison is scarcity, the belief that there's not enough success, beauty, or love to go around. But life doesn't operate on shortage. The sun doesn't dim for another to shine. When you understand that abundance exists for all, envy loses its grip on your heart. Comparison creates illusion. You see someone's chapter 20 and measure it against your chapter 2. You see the result but not the struggle, the smile but not the sacrifice. Confidence fades because you're fighting a race that was never yours to run. When you constantly compare, you train your mind to see what's missing instead of what's growing. Your attention becomes a magnifying glass for lack. But confidence lives where appreciation does, when you start celebrating what is instead of mourning what isn't. Comparison turns potential into paralysis. You spend so much energy analyzing others that you forget to act on your own dreams. Confidence doesn't come from observation, it comes from participation. You cannot think your way into strength, you must live your way into it. Confidence dies the moment you trade purpose for performance. When your actions are driven by approval, you disconnect from authenticity. The world doesn't need another copy. It needs the clarity of your original essence. That's where real confidence begins. The truth is, comparison feeds insecurity because it focuses on what's external. But confidence is born within. No amount of validation can fill the void of self-neglect. The more you seek to measure up, the further you drift from your center. Every time you compare, you reject a part of yourself. You tell your soul, "Who I am isn't enough." And slowly, it starts believing you. That's why self-love isn't indulgence, it's medicine. It heals the wounds created by constant comparison. Social media magnifies comparison because it shows perfection without process. But what you see online is a filter, not a full picture. Confidence requires you to detach from illusion and reconnect with reality, your own, honest, imperfect one. Comparison is the habit of measuring your worth by someone else's reflection, but mirrors distort depending on who's holding them. Confidence is built when you stop borrowing mirrors and start building self-awareness. The only person you should compare yourself to is who you were yesterday. Because real success isn't about outshining others, it's about outgrowing your past. Progress, not competition, is the true path to peace. Confidence thrives on gratitude. Every time you focus on your blessings, envy weakens. Gratitude shifts energy from scarcity to sufficiency. It reminds you that where you are is not a failure, it's a foundation. When you live in comparison, happiness becomes conditional. You feel good only when you're ahead and worthless when you're behind. But confidence doesn't depend on position, it depends on perspective. It's not about where you stand, but how you stand. Comparison is fueled by insecurity, but insecurity fades when you embrace individuality. The moment you stop trying to blend in, you start standing out. Confidence isn't about being better, it's about being genuine. Confidence grows when you honor your pace. You stop rushing to catch up and start trusting divine timing. Flowers don't envy each other's bloom, they just grow where they're planted. You, too, are blooming, even if your season looks different. Comparison destroys confidence because it rewires your focus toward what you can't control. You can't control someone else's path, privilege, or progress. You can only control your consistency, mindset, and discipline, the real engines of success. Confidence requires emotional maturity, the ability to celebrate others without feeling smaller. When you genuinely rejoice in someone's success, it proves you no longer see life as competition. You've stepped into abundance. When you stop comparing, peace becomes your natural state. You stop chasing validation and start living in flow. You realize that your purpose was never to compete. It was to contribute something only you can. Confidence is a practice of returning to yourself. Every time you notice comparison rising, gently remind yourself, my path is my own. That repetition retrains the brain to choose self-trust over self-doubt. Comparison makes you chase perfection, but confidence is born from imperfection. When you embrace your flaws as part of your uniqueness, you turn shame into power. Confidence doesn't say, I am flawless. It says, I am whole. Comparison is an endless race with no finish line. The moment you reach one goal, another appears. Confidence, however, is timeless. It grows quietly, regardless of outcomes. It's a peace that no win or loss can shake. When you compare, you create distance from your inner voice. The noise of others drowns out intuition. But when you silence comparison, you can finally hear the guidance that was always there, the wisdom whispering, you're enough. Confidence comes when you value authenticity over approval. Approval fades as fast as attention, but authenticity lasts forever because it's rooted in truth. The world may forget your image, but it will never forget your energy. Comparison poisons creativity. You stop creating for joy and start creating for judgment. But art, whether in words, work, or life, can only flourish when made for love, not applause. Confidence frees you to create without fear. You heal from comparison when you realize that you were never supposed to be like anyone else. Your timing, your gifts, your story, all designed for a reason. Confidence blooms the moment you stop wishing for someone else's light and start tending to your own. The end of comparison is not indifference, it's peace. You no longer measure your worth through others' success because you finally see that life isn't a race. Confidence whispers, I'm right where I need to be. And from that place of stillness, everything begins to grow. Confidence returns when you remember who you are, not who they are. It's not found in trying to stand taller than others, but in standing fully in your truth. When you embrace your uniqueness, comparison loses power, and when comparison dies, confidence is reborn. Chapter 4. Healing the relationship with yourself. Healing the relationship with yourself begins with honesty. You can't fix what you keep pretending doesn't hurt. For years, you may have ignored the quiet voice inside that asked for rest, love, or forgiveness. You silenced it with distractions and busyness. But healing starts the moment you decide to finally listen, not to the noise of the world, but to the whispers of your soul. The relationship you have with yourself sets the tone for every other relationship in your life. If that inner connection is filled with criticism, fear, or resentment, no amount of external love will ever feel enough. True healing begins when you stop seeking yourself in others and start finding peace in your own reflection. For too long, you might have been your own enemy. You doubted your worth, punished your mistakes, and spoke words to yourself you'd never say to someone you love. Healing is learning to become your own friend again, to replace judgment with understanding and impatience with grace. Forgiving yourself is one of the hardest but most powerful acts of self-healing. You've held yourself hostage to the past, replaying regrets like chains that bind your progress. But forgiveness isn't saying it didn't matter, it's saying you're ready to move forward. You can't heal while living in punishment. Healing the relationship with yourself also means releasing guilt for the times you didn't know better. You did the best you could with the awareness you had. Growth is not linear, it's messy, uneven, and human. The more compassion you give yourself, the faster you'll rise. You must learn to treat yourself like someone you are responsible for loving. That means showing up for your needs, not just physically, but emotionally. It means resting when you're tired, saying no when you're drained, and celebrating yourself even when no one else notices. That's how trust with yourself is rebuilt. The wounds within you may not be visible, but they still speak. They show up in your habits, fears, and choices. Healing requires you to look beneath behavior and ask, what pain am I protecting? Awareness is the first medicine. Love is the second. You can't hate yourself into healing. You can't shame yourself into growth. The energy that breaks you cannot be the energy that rebuilds you. Healing is gentle work. It's sitting with pain instead of running from it, understanding it instead of suppressing it, and allowing it to teach you what needs to change. Sometimes healing looks like distance from people, habits, or environments that keep reopening your wounds. It's not selfish to step away. It's sacred. You're not abandoning others, you're returning to yourself. Every healthy boundary you build is a love letter to your peace. Healing the relationship with yourself requires you to slow down. The world glorifies speed, but the soul heals in stillness. Silence reveals what noise hides the truth of who you are beneath expectations. When you stop rushing, clarity begins to speak. Many people chase healing like a finish line, but healing is not an achievement, it's a lifestyle. It's choosing compassion every day, even when old patterns whisper that you're unworthy. It's understanding that progress is not perfection, it's presence. To heal yourself, you must stop comparing your pain to others. Your wounds are valid even if someone else's seem worse. Healing is not a competition. Your feelings deserve space simply because they exist. Dismissing your pain only deepens it. Your inner critic may be loud, but it's not your truth. That voice was shaped by fear, rejection, and conditioning. Healing is learning to separate your true self, the one that is calm, wise, and loving, from the noise of that critic. You are not your thoughts. You are the awareness behind them. Healing requires patience. You can't rush what needs to unfold slowly. Just like the body heals in stages, so does the heart. Some days will feel like progress, others like relapse. Both are part of recovery. The goal isn't to never fall, but to rise softer each time. To heal yourself, you must also heal your expectations. You don't have to have everything figured out. You don't need to know where you're going, only that you're willing to keep walking. Surrendering control is not weakness, it's wisdom. It's trusting that life knows what it's doing, even when you don't. Healing the relationship with yourself means letting go of perfection. You are not meant to be flawless. You are meant to be whole. Every crack in your being is a window for light to enter. The parts of you you've tried to hide are often the ones that make you most human. You heal when you stop apologizing for being emotional. Your emotions are not burdens, they are messages. Sadness asks for rest. Anger asks for boundaries. Fear asks for safety. Ignoring emotions is self-abandonment. Listening to them is self-love. Part of healing is learning to trust yourself again. For years, you may have second-guessed your choices or silenced your intuition. But every time you honor your instincts, even in small ways, you rebuild inner confidence. The more you trust your voice, the quieter doubt becomes. Healing yourself also means letting love in, not the love that demands or controls, but the kind that sees you and accepts you. Sometimes that love comes from others. Sometimes it comes from nature, from stillness, from divine presence. All healing love begins with allowing yourself to receive it. To truly heal, you must let go of the identity built around your wounds. You are not what happened to you, you are what you became in spite of it. Stop defining yourself by your scars. They are evidence of your strength, not symbols of your damage. Healing the relationship with yourself is not about erasing pain, it's about integrating it. When you accept your past instead of fighting it, it loses power over you. Pain transforms into wisdom when you no longer resist its lesson. You cannot heal while clinging to people who remind you of your pain more than your progress. Sometimes love means letting go. You are allowed to walk away from what hurts you, even if it once made you happy. Healing is loyalty to your future, not your past. Every step towards self-healing deepens your relationship with life. You begin to notice beauty again in silence, in small moments, in breath. The more you heal, the more alive you feel. Healing reconnects you to wonder, something pain once took away. Healing teaches humility. You realize that everyone is carrying something unseen. It softens judgment and grows compassion. When you understand your own wounds, you start seeing others with kinder eyes. That's how inner healing becomes collective healing. The process is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you were before the world taught you to doubt yourself. Beneath the layers of defense and pain is the pure essence of you, untouched and eternal. Healing removes the dust so your light can shine again. Healing the relationship with yourself also means celebrating how far you've come. You may not be where you want to be, but you're no longer where you were. Every bit of effort counts. Healing is not loud or dramatic. It's quiet, consistent progress. Healing requires faith. Faith that your brokenness has purpose, that your journey has meaning. You may not understand it yet, but every detour has guided you back to yourself. Life doesn't waste pain. It repurposes it into wisdom. When you heal the relationship with yourself, you no longer beg for peace, you become it. You stop chasing happiness in external things and start cultivating it within. Your energy shifts from survival to creation. You start building a life that reflects your healed heart. And in the end, healing yourself is the greatest act of love you'll ever perform. Because when you are at peace within, you stop wounding others and start inspiring them. Your healed energy becomes a quiet light, one that reminds the world that wholeness is possible, one soul at a time. Chapter 5. Setting boundaries is a form of self-respect. Boundaries are not walls, they are doors. They don't shut people out. They teach them how to meet you with respect. When you have no boundaries, you invite chaos. When you create them, you invite peace. Loving yourself means protecting your energy from what drains it, even when it feels uncomfortable. For years, you may have mistaken self-sacrifice for love. You kept saying yes when your heart screamed no, afraid that limits would make you unkind. But boundaries aren't cruelty, they are clarity. They say, I love you, but I love me too. Every healthy relationship needs edges, not just emotion. Boundaries define where your responsibility ends and another's begins. Without them, you carry weight that was never yours to hold. Respecting yourself means no longer confusing compassion with compliance. People who benefit from your lack of boundaries will call you selfish when you start setting them. Let them. Their discomfort is proof that your healing is working. You don't owe anyone endless access to your time, mind, or peace. Setting boundaries isn't about control, it's about alignment. It's choosing to only participate in what feels truthful. When your inner world is clear, you stop reacting from guilt and start responding from groundedness. Many avoid boundaries because they fear rejection, but the right people won't leave when you draw a line. They'll honor it. Boundaries don't scare real love away, they filter out the love that was conditional. Without boundaries, resentment grows. You start giving beyond your capacity and silently hope others will notice. But people can't respect what you don't communicate. Healing begins the moment you speak your needs without apology. Boundaries are not about pushing others away. They're about protecting your connection with yourself. Every time you say yes to things that hurt you, you say no to your peace. Respect means remembering that your energy is sacred. Sometimes the hardest boundary to set is with yourself, saying no to your own patterns of overgiving, over-explaining, or chasing closure. You must protect yourself from the part of you that still believes love must be earned. Boundaries teach you to value quality over quantity. It's better to have a few genuine relationships than many that drain you. When you stop spreading yourself thin, you create space for depth, peace, and mutual respect. You are not responsible for how others react to your boundaries. You're only responsible for communicating them clearly. Maturity means allowing others to feel disappointed without betraying yourself to make them comfortable. Boundaries also redefine love. They show that love without respect isn't love, it's dependency. When someone truly values you, they will cherish the limits that keep your connection healthy. Learning to set boundaries requires courage because it confronts your deepest fear, being unloved for who you truly are. But every time you choose self-respect over approval, that fear loses power. You begin to see that real acceptance begins within. Boundaries are invisible armor for the soul. They protect your purpose, your creativity, your peace. Without them, even good intentions can become heavy. With them, love becomes sustainable instead of sacrificial. Self-respect sounds like silence sometimes, the quiet strength of choosing not to argue, not to explain, not to prove. Boundaries remind you that peace doesn't need permission to exist. You can't build confidence while allowing disrespect. Boundaries are where self-esteem grows. Every no spoken from clarity builds inner strength. Every limit honored teaches you that your voice matters. Boundaries also redefine forgiveness. Forgiving someone doesn't mean letting them keep hurting you. It means wishing them well from a distance if needed. Forgiveness without boundaries is self-betrayal. Many think love should be unconditional, but that's not entirely true. Compassion can be unconditional, yes, but access cannot. Love thrives in safety, and safety exists only where boundaries are honored. The moment you realize your peace is worth protecting, everything changes. You stop begging for mutual respect. You require it. That's not arrogance. It's alignment with your worth. Setting boundaries means unlearning people-pleasing. It means accepting that not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. Peace isn't found in universal approval, it's found in self-trust. Some boundaries are loud and spoken, others are quiet and practiced. Walking away, taking time, choosing silence. Boundaries don't always need explanation, they only need consistency. The people who truly love you will adjust. The ones who only used you will resist. Let that resistance reveal truth. Boundaries are not meant to please others, they're meant to protect your evolution. You can love someone deeply and still create distance. That's what maturity looks like. Understanding that love doesn't mean access at all times. You can care and still choose calm. Boundaries turn emotional chaos into clarity. You stop trying to fix everyone and start focusing on what you can actually control: your reactions, your energy, your presence. When you start honoring your limits, guilt may show up. It will tell you that you're being cold or distant. But guilt is just the echo of your old identity, the version of you who believed self-abandonment was kindness. Boundaries are the bridge between self-love and self-discipline. They require both compassion and firmness. Too soft, and people walk over you. Too hard, and you close yourself off. Balance is found in calm, clear truth. Each time you set a boundary, you send a signal to the universe. I am ready for higher quality connections. Life always matches your level of self-respect. The more you honor yourself, the more aligned everything becomes. Some relationships will not survive your boundaries, and that's okay. Healing isn't about keeping everyone, it's about keeping peace. Growth naturally filters what no longer aligns. Boundaries protect time, your most valuable currency. When you stop giving it freely, you realize how much life opens up. You begin to spend energy on what truly nourishes your soul. The boundary between rest and productivity is sacred too. Resting doesn't make you lazy, it recharges your power. Without rest, discipline becomes depletion. Self-respect means knowing when to pause. Boundaries are how you teach the world who you are. They are not demands, they are declarations. They say, I respect myself enough to not be available for what harms me. You'll know you've grown when peace feels more important than being understood. That's what boundaries give you: peace, even when others disagree. Freedom, even when others disapprove. Boundaries turn fear into confidence. The first time you say no, your voice will shake. The second time, it will steady. The third time, it will sound like truth. And from there, you'll never lose that strength again. Healthy boundaries make love sustainable. They keep relationships balanced, giving space for both closeness and individuality. Without boundaries, even the deepest love collapses under pressure. Your energy is your responsibility. Protect it fiercely. You are not obligated to carry every conversation, fix every emotion, or absorb every pain. Peace is not selfish. It's spiritual hygiene. Setting boundaries is not about isolation. It's about intention. It's about knowing where your energy belongs and where it doesn't. When you master that, life becomes lighter, clearer, and more authentic. And in the end, boundaries are the language of self-respect. They say, I value my peace, my time, and my heart. When you finally learn to speak that language fluently, you stop begging for respect because you start embodying it. Chapter 6. Learning to be alone without feeling lonely. Solitude is not emptiness, it is space. The kind of space that allows your soul to breathe after years of noise. Learning to be alone without feeling lonely begins when you stop viewing your own company as punishment and start seeing it as peace. Being alone is not the absence of love, it's the presence of self. Loneliness comes from the belief that something is missing, but when you look deeper, you'll see that nothing essential is missing. You were simply disconnected from yourself. The more you reconnect with your own heart, the less you crave constant validation from the outside world. Most people fear being alone because silence exposes what they've buried, the regrets, the insecurities, the unmet dreams. But solitude is not the enemy of healing, it is its greatest ally. When you sit quietly, you begin to hear what your soul has been trying to tell you for years. Aloneness teaches you how to nurture yourself. You begin to understand your rhythms, when you need rest, when you need movement, when you need reflection. Being alone allows you to finally care for yourself the way you always wanted others to. In solitude, you realize that you are enough company. You laugh at your own thoughts, find beauty in small things, and rediscover the creativity that was drowned by noise. What you once called loneliness becomes serenity. Being alone teaches you independence of spirit. You no longer fear silence or need distraction to feel alive. You learn to draw strength from within instead of draining it from others. That's the first step toward emotional freedom. Loneliness fades when you make peace with your own presence. You stop seeking someone to fill the void and start realizing the void was an invitation, a doorway back to your soul. The emptiness you feel is just space waiting to be filled with self-understanding. Many confuse solitude with isolation. Isolation disconnects, solitude reconnects. Isolation is a wound, solitude is medicine. The difference lies in intention. One avoids pain, the other listens to it. Being alone helps you rediscover your authenticity. You stop performing for attention and start existing as yourself. Without external influence, your true voice grows louder. That's when you start remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. The ability to enjoy your own company is emotional maturity. It shows that your happiness no longer depends on anyone's presence or absence. It means you've stopped outsourcing peace. When you learn to be alone, you stop clinging to unhealthy relationships. You no longer fear loss, because you've discovered that you can never truly lose yourself again. That realization ends dependency and begins freedom. Loneliness often hides behind distraction. We scroll, talk, consume anything to avoid stillness. But when you stop running, the silence that once scared you becomes sacred. It turns into a teacher that reveals everything noise concealed. Solitude brings clarity. Away from the noise of opinions, you finally hear your intuition. You start seeing what truly matters. Not the next achievement, not the next approval, but inner calm. The world tells you to fear being alone because it profits from your distractions, but strength grows in stillness. Solitude is where leaders are born, where artists create, and where souls mature. It's not isolation, it's incubation. When you enjoy solitude, you stop chasing attention. You begin to prefer depth over noise, authenticity over popularity. You realize that peace feels better than being seen. Being alone doesn't mean you don't love people. It means you've learned to love yourself enough not to need constant company. You still connect, but from fullness, not emptiness. That's the difference between attachment and presence. To enjoy solitude, you must release shame. Society praises togetherness but labels solitude as sadness. Yet some of the most peaceful souls spend years in quiet. Stillness is not loneliness, it's mastery. Solitude shows you how to be your own friend. You learn to talk to yourself with kindness, to listen without judgment. You stop expecting others to complete you because you realize you were never incomplete. You grow stronger when you spend time alone because you finally see what needs healing. Distraction hides wounds, solitude reveals them. And in that revelation lies transformation. Learning to be alone helps you understand that love doesn't only exist in relationships. Love exists in how you treat your morning, how you honor your space, how you speak to your mind. You find that love everywhere once you find it within. The more you embrace solitude, the more magnetic you become. Peaceful energy draws others without effort. You stop chasing and start attracting, because people feel safe around those who are at peace with themselves. Solitude redefines fulfillment. You stop searching for happiness in excitement and begin to find it in stillness, in a cup of tea, a sunset, a quiet thought that makes sense of your life. Happiness becomes subtle, yet constant. Being alone doesn't mean being lonely. It means being centered. You can be surrounded by people and still feel empty, or you can sit alone and feel complete. Fulfillment is not a crowd, it's connection to your essence. When you spend time alone, you begin to notice your mind's patterns. You see which thoughts uplift and which ones sabotage. Solitude becomes a mirror that shows your mental landscape, and awareness becomes the first act of self-healing. In solitude, you learn to slow down. You realize that rushing through life only creates distance from yourself. The moments of silence you once avoided become sacred rituals, moments where you remember that simply existing is enough. The fear of loneliness fades when you build a life that feels meaningful, even in silence. You create small routines that nourish your soul, reading, walking, journaling, breathing. You stop needing company to feel alive. Solitude teaches emotional independence, the ability to regulate your energy without external validation. You no longer rely on others to calm your storms. You learn to sit through them until peace returns. That is true strength. Learning to be alone means redefining connection. It's no longer about how many people surround you, but how deeply you connect with yourself. You start realizing that self-awareness is the most intimate relationship you'll ever have. In solitude, your creativity awakens. The ideas that couldn't breathe under constant stimulation begin to flourish. The silence you once feared becomes fertile ground for inspiration. When you stop fearing aloneness, you start understanding others better. Because when you no longer depend on people, you can love them freely. You love out of choice, not need. That's the purest kind of love there is. Solitude gives you perspective. Problems that seemed enormous shrink in silence. You begin to see that most chaos was created by noise. Stillness organizes the mind and renews the spirit. Being comfortable alone doesn't mean you don't crave connection. It means you no longer fear its absence. You can hold space for both, the joy of togetherness and the peace of solitude. Balance is where confidence lives. Solitude teaches patience. You begin to see that growth cannot be rushed. Flowers don't bloom when shouted at, they bloom when left in stillness and sunlight. You, too, bloom when you give yourself quiet care. To love being alone, you must accept that your worth is not dependent on being chosen. You are valuable even in silence, even when unseen. Presence is enough. Existence itself is sacred. Being alone reminds you of your wholeness. You stop waiting for external permission to live fully. You dance in your own company, laugh at your own jokes, and realize joy was never missing, only misplaced. When you make peace with solitude, you become fearless. You no longer cling to people, places, or habits out of fear of emptiness. You know that you can rebuild peace from within, no matter what life takes away. In the end, learning to be alone without feeling lonely is not about isolation, it's about inner union. When you finally fall in love with your own soul, you stop searching for home in others, because you've realized you've always been home. Chapter 7. Stop seeking validation, start giving it to yourself. The need for validation begins early. We learn to measure our worth by the smiles, grades, and approvals of others. Somewhere along the way, we forget how to recognize our own value without applause. Healing begins the moment you realize you no longer need permission to feel enough. External validation is a fragile foundation. When you depend on praise, your peace becomes negotiable. You rise when they approve and fall when they don't. But self-validation, that quiet inner voice that says, "I am proud of me," gives you freedom that no one can take away. The search for validation is the search for safety. You want to be seen, understood, and accepted. But true safety comes from within, from the unwavering knowing that even if the world misunderstands you, you still stand in truth. Every time you chase approval, you abandon a part of yourself. You begin to shrink, molding your identity to fit expectations that were never yours. The price of constant validation is authenticity, and no amount of applause is worth losing yourself. When you live for validation, silence feels like rejection. But silence isn't always disapproval. Sometimes it's peace. When you learn to validate yourself, you no longer need others to echo your worth. You know who you are, even when no one is watching. Seeking validation is a habit of survival. It's what we learned when love felt conditional, that we had to perform to be accepted. But you are not here to perform, you are here to live. You don't need to earn what was meant to be unconditional. Validation from others feels good, but it's temporary. The moment it fades, the emptiness returns, demanding another fix. Self-validation is lasting. It's the quiet contentment of knowing that your worth doesn't expire with someone's attention. To stop seeking validation, you must first catch the moments when you crave it. Notice when you post, speak, or act just to be seen. Ask yourself, would I still do this if no one clapped? That question reveals whether your actions are fueled by truth or approval. When you begin validating yourself, you stop chasing mirrors and start creating light. You no longer wait for others to reflect your worth, you illuminate it from within. That's what self-respect feels like. The most powerful moment in life is when you realize that someone's indifference no longer defines you. Their silence doesn't mean you're invisible. It means you've stopped begging to be seen by the wrong eyes. Validation is addictive because it feels like love, but it's imitation love, sweet for a second, empty after. Real love, the kind you give yourself, doesn't fluctuate. It remains steady, even when no one notices your effort. You start healing the moment you tell yourself, "I am proud of me," even when no one else does. You start blooming when you stop asking others if you're worthy of sunlight. Your self-approval is enough fertilizer for growth. The need for validation often hides under good intentions. You want to be kind, helpful, pleasing, but if your kindness comes at the cost of your peace, it's no longer kindness, it's self-abandonment. You don't need to prove your worth, you need to remember it. The world's opinion changes like weather. Your worth should be the mountain that remains unmoved beneath it. Self-validation doesn't mean arrogance. It means balance, knowing your strengths without denying your flaws. It's saying, I am enough, even as I grow. That sentence is power in its purest form. When you stop seeking validation, you stop fearing rejection, because you understand that rejection doesn't reduce your value. It redirects your focus. Every no becomes a boundary guiding you closer to your authentic path. The more you validate yourself, the quieter the noise becomes. Opinions lose their sharpness. Criticism feels less personal. You stop reacting and start observing. Peace replaces defensiveness. You cannot please everyone. Even perfection won't save you from criticism. Once you realize that, you're free. Because the goal of life isn't to be liked, it's to be real. And real people are often misunderstood before they are respected. Self-validation transforms how you work, love, and dream. You start doing things for fulfillment, not attention. You work quietly, love deeply, and rest peacefully because the audience no longer matters. When you validate yourself, you give others permission to do the same. Confidence becomes contagious. You stop inspiring envy and start inspiring courage, the courage to exist without apology. Seeking validation is exhausting because it's endless. You can't control perception. You can be kind and still be misjudged, brilliant and still be overlooked. But none of that changes your essence. Your value is not up for vote. Stop looking for people to understand your worth. Half of them are still searching for their own. Let your peace be proof that you've outgrown the need to explain yourself. You teach others how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you constantly doubt yourself, they will too. If you honor your voice, they'll learn to listen. Validation begins with the mirror, not the crowd. To give yourself validation, start small. Celebrate progress, not just outcomes. Speak kindly to your reflection. Acknowledge effort, not just perfection. Consistency in self-praise rewires years of self-doubt. Sometimes, self-validation means walking alone, because not everyone will clap for your boundaries or your growth. But solitude with self-respect is better than togetherness built on approval. Stop waiting for others to see your potential, start acting on it. The right people will recognize you when you no longer need recognition. That's the paradox of self-validation. The less you seek it, the more naturally it arrives. The validation you seek from others is often the validation you've been denying yourself. You want others to believe in you, but you doubt your own strength. The moment you believe first, the need to prove fades. Self-validation is radical self-care. It's the daily act of saying, I see myself, I honor my effort, I forgive my flaws. That voice inside you becomes your inner parent, nurturing, gentle, unwavering. When you stop seeking validation, failure loses its sting. Mistakes no longer define you, they educate you. You no longer fear judgment because you know growth is messy and beautiful at once. You'll notice peace replacing performance. You stop dressing for approval, speaking for acceptance, and living for applause. You begin existing for truth, and truth never needs validation to stand tall. The opinions of others are only noise until you believe them. Self-validation silences that noise. It reminds you that you can hear feedback without absorbing it. You listen to understand, not to obey. Self-validation changes your inner dialogue. The critic that once shouted becomes a whisper of wisdom. You stop saying, I'm not good enough, and start saying, I'm learning, and that's enough. To truly validate yourself, you must accept that your value doesn't increase when you're loved and doesn't decrease when you're rejected. It simply exists steady, infinite, untouched. You become magnetic when you no longer beg for validation. People sense authenticity. They gravitate toward the calm confidence of someone who knows who they are. That's real power, quiet, grounded, unbothered. Self-validation is not a destination, but a discipline. It's choosing daily to speak to yourself with respect, to act in alignment with your truth, and to let approval come as a bonus, not a need. And in the end, the validation that truly matters is your own. The world may forget to praise you, may misunderstand your path, may overlook your effort. But if you know in your heart that you showed up with truth, that is enough. Because self-validation is the language of freedom, and once you speak it fluently, you'll never again beg the world to tell you who you are. Chapter 8. The Power of Acceptance and Forgiveness. Acceptance is not about giving up, it's about letting go of resistance. It's the moment you stop fighting life and start flowing with it. What you resist, you strengthen. What you accept, you transform. Healing begins when you no longer need the past to be different. Forgiveness is freedom disguised as surrender. It's not saying what happened was right, it's saying you're ready to stop carrying it. Every grudge is a chain that keeps you bound to yesterday. Forgiveness cuts that chain, not for them, but for you. Acceptance is understanding that life will not always give you closure. Sometimes, peace arrives when you stop searching for explanations. You learn to breathe in the uncertainty and trust that not knowing is also part of growth. Forgiving others is hard, but forgiving yourself is harder. You replay your mistakes, wishing you had acted differently. But guilt cannot rewrite history, it only delays healing. You did the best you could with the awareness you had. That truth deserves compassion. Acceptance is not passivity, it's power rooted in peace. It means facing reality without denial or distortion. When you accept things as they are, you reclaim the energy that was wasted, wishing they were something else. Forgiveness doesn't erase memory, it erases resentment. It allows you to remember without reliving. It teaches you that pain can be a teacher, not a prison. When you forgive, you stop bleeding from the same wound. The more you resist what is, the more you suffer. Resistance creates tension between who you are and what you wish life to be. Acceptance dissolves that tension. It doesn't change the situation, it changes your relationship with it. Forgiveness requires courage because it confronts pride. Ego says, "I won't forgive until they understand." The soul whispers, "Forgive, not because they deserve peace, but because you do." One heals, the other hardens. Acceptance doesn't mean you approve of what happened. It means you understand that fighting reality doesn't undo it. When you stop arguing with the truth, space opens for wisdom to enter. Forgiveness is a spiritual act. It's choosing peace over punishment. The longer you hold anger, the more it holds you. Forgiveness releases both the prisoner and the guard, and often they were the same person. Acceptance brings clarity. You start seeing life as it is, not as you fear or wish it to be. You begin to notice beauty, even in imperfection, because peace doesn't come from fixing everything, but from seeing everything clearly. Forgiving yourself is a declaration of self-worth. It says, "I no longer define myself by my lowest moments." You are not your past. You are the strength that grew from surviving it. Acceptance means allowing life to be messy. Healing is not linear. Some days you'll feel whole, others cracked. But even cracks let light in. The more you accept imperfection, the less control pain has over you. Forgiveness doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it's daily work choosing, again and again, to release bitterness. It's not a single act, it's a lifelong practice of freeing your heart from heaviness. Acceptance opens the door to presence. When you stop dwelling on what should have been, you finally step into what is. The present moment is where peace lives, but you can't enter it carrying regret. When you forgive, you stop trying to rewrite someone else's behavior and start focusing on your own peace. It's an act of reclaiming your power from the past. Because holding anger doesn't punish them, it poisons you. Acceptance is the soil where gratitude grows. When you accept what life brings, even its storms, you begin to notice blessings that were once hidden by resentment. Gratitude and resistance cannot coexist. Forgiveness is self-love in action. You release pain not to forget, but to heal. Each time you forgive, you tell your heart, I choose peace over pain. That decision changes everything. Acceptance brings softness. It removes the sharpness of expectations. You begin to see people not as villains or heroes, but as humans, flawed, scared, learning, just like you. That understanding dissolves judgment. To accept life is to trust its timing. You learn that what you lost was never meant to stay, and what's yours will never require force. The universe doesn't make mistakes, only lessons. Forgiveness is not about reconciliation, it's about liberation. Some people cannot stay in your life, but you can still release the hold their memory has on you. You can wish them peace without welcoming their chaos. Acceptance transforms pain into purpose. Once you stop fighting what hurt you, you start understanding why it had to happen. Growth is born from surrender, not resistance. Self-forgiveness requires humility. It means admitting you were learning, that your mistakes were part of becoming. You release the illusion of perfection and embrace the beauty of progress. When you practice acceptance, you stop labeling experiences as good or bad. You simply see them as experiences, necessary threads in the fabric of who you are. Every one of them taught you something vital. Forgiveness clears emotional space. It's like cleaning a cluttered room. Suddenly, there's room for joy to move in. You can't invite peace into a heart that's already filled with resentment. Acceptance teaches patience. You understand that some answers take time to reveal themselves. Healing isn't about rushing closure, it's about trusting that clarity will come when you're ready to receive it. When you forgive others, you release your spirit from the grip of their actions. You stop letting what they did control who you become. That's not weakness, that's evolution. Acceptance allows love to flow again. When you stop resenting what life took, you make room for what it's trying to give. Peace always follows surrender. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting your worth. You can forgive and still hold boundaries. It's possible to let go of pain while refusing to accept the same disrespect again. Acceptance humbles the heart. It reminds you that every person is fighting unseen battles. The moment you see through compassion instead of anger, the world softens around you. Forgiving yourself is the final step toward freedom. When you stop replaying your mistakes, you free up space to create a new story, one written with love, not regret. Acceptance and forgiveness are twins. One sees reality, the other releases resistance. Together, they bring peace. Without them, you keep reliving pain under new disguises. You can't control how others behave, but you can control whether their actions live rent-free in your mind. Forgiveness is eviction. It reclaims your mental and emotional space. Acceptance doesn't happen overnight. It begins quietly in sighs, in tears, in small releases. One day you wake up, and the memory that once hurt no longer holds power. That's when you know healing has taken root. Forgiveness opens the heart, and acceptance keeps it open. Together they create wisdom, the kind that doesn't deny pain, but transforms it into peace. When you stop seeking revenge and start seeking peace, your soul matures. You realize that revenge gives momentary satisfaction, but forgiveness gives lasting freedom. Acceptance makes you unstoppable, because when you stop fearing pain, you stop running from life. You meet every moment as it comes, with grace instead of resistance. And in the end, the power of acceptance and forgiveness is the power to live fully. It's choosing peace over pride, growth over resentment, love over pain, because freedom doesn't come from fixing the past, it comes from finally letting it go. Chapter 9. Transforming Self-Talk into Inner Strength. The way you speak to yourself shapes the world you live in. Every thought, every internal word becomes a seed that grows into either courage or fear. You cannot build a peaceful life on the soil of self-criticism. Transformation begins when you change the voice inside your head from an enemy into an ally. Self-talk is not just chatter, it's programming. What you repeat becomes belief, and belief becomes behavior. If your inner voice constantly says, "I'm not enough," your actions will obey that sentence. But the moment you whisper, "I can learn," your life begins to expand. For years, you may have absorbed voices that weren't yours, parents, teachers, society, until their words became your own. Healing means separating what was planted in fear from what was born in truth. Your mind is not a battlefield to conquer, it's a garden to reclaim. Negative self-talk doesn't disappear overnight. It's a habit, and habits are unlearned through awareness. When the critic speaks, pause and ask, "Is this voice guiding me or hurting me?" That question alone begins to dissolve its power. Your inner dialogue is the tone of your reality. Speak with kindness, and life softens. Speak with cruelty, and even beauty feels distant. The goal isn't blind positivity, it's honesty with compassion. "I'm struggling, but I'm growing," is more powerful than any empty affirmation. Every time you insult yourself, your heart listens. It records your words like truth. Imagine speaking to a child the way you speak to your mind. Would they feel safe or ashamed? Be that child's protector, not their critic. Transformation happens through repetition, not perfection. Each time you catch a harsh thought and replace it with patience, you rewire your brain for peace. Small corrections repeated daily become lifelong confidence. Your thoughts are not orders, they're options. Just because a negative idea enters your mind doesn't mean it deserves obedience. You can let it pass like a cloud instead of letting it rain on your day. Self-talk can either drain energy or generate it. The words you feed yourself before you start the day decide how far you'll go. "I can handle this" is not denial, it's direction. When you speak kindly to yourself, you stop living in defense mode. You start creating instead of surviving. Encouragement is not indulgence, it's fuel. Even warriors need gentle words. Many people wait for external praise before allowing themselves to feel proud, but your inner voice can be that praise. Tell yourself, "I showed up, I tried." That simple statement turns effort into empowerment. Criticism has its place, it shows where growth is needed. But when it becomes constant punishment, it stops serving you. Learn to correct without condemning. "Next time I'll do better" carries wisdom. "I'm worthless" carries wounds. Your mind listens more when you're quiet. In silence, you can hear the pattern of your thoughts. Notice whether they uplift or diminish you. Awareness is the first act of self-leadership. Kind self-talk doesn't make you soft, it makes you steady. You become the calm voice that keeps you moving through storms. Strength is not harshness, it's stability born from understanding. When your inner voice changes, your posture, your decisions, even your relationships shift. People treat you the way you treat yourself. Confidence radiates from language, not appearance. Transforming self-talk means taking responsibility for your narrative. You may not control every thought, but you control which ones you feed. Attention is energy. Give it to what helps you grow. The mind often mirrors past pain. That's why your self-talk may echo old criticism. When you rewrite those scripts, you're not lying to yourself. You're updating outdated programming. Healing is software renewal for the soul. Forgive yourself for every time you believed the wrong voice. You were doing what you knew. Now you know better, and knowing better is progress. Growth never demands punishment, only awareness. Your inner language should feel like home, a place where mistakes are met with understanding and victories are celebrated, even the small ones. That is how self-respect is built, one gentle sentence at a time. Affirmations work only when spoken with belief. Don't just say, "I love myself." Prove it through patience, boundaries, and rest. Words without embodiment are noise. Lived self-talk becomes truth. The mind doesn't heal through silence. It heals through conversation. Talk back to doubt. Challenge it. Replace "what if I fail" with "what if I learn something beautiful?" Courage often hides behind a better question. When you stop insulting yourself, creativity awakens. The energy once used to survive your own judgment becomes fuel for purpose. You can't create freely while fighting your reflection. Your inner critic fears change because it mistakes comfort for safety. Thank it for trying to protect you, then lead anyway. Transformation doesn't silence fear. It teaches fear to follow quietly. Every word you speak internally becomes emotional currency. Spend it wisely. Invest in thoughts that yield peace, not panic. The returns compound over time. Self-talk is self-training. Athletes repeat empowering mantras before performance because the body follows the mind. You can train your mind the same way with discipline, not denial. When you treat your mind like a friend, you start noticing your triggers. You learn when to rest, when to push, when to simply breathe. Friendship with your own mind is emotional intelligence in action. The language of strength is gentle but firm. It says, "I can improve without hating who I am now." That balance between acceptance and ambition builds unshakable confidence. You can't stop negative thoughts from visiting, but you can stop offering them a chair. Let them knock, let them leave. You are not required to entertain every idea that enters. Transforming self-talk requires consistency. One kind sentence may not silence years of criticism, but it starts erosion. Every drop of compassion wears down the wall of self-doubt. When your inner dialogue shifts from "why me" to "what can I learn from this?" you stop seeing yourself as a victim of life and start seeing yourself as a participant in growth. That single shift changes everything. Be mindful of the words you repeat. "I can't" creates paralysis. "I'll try" creates motion. Your vocabulary decides your trajectory. Language is not decoration, it's design. Healing your self-talk also heals your nervous system. Kind words calm the body. When your mind feels safe, your spirit becomes creative again. Peace is physiology, not just philosophy. Your voice becomes your shelter. In moments of failure, it reminds you, this is not the end. In moments of success, it whispers, stay humble. That voice becomes your compass through both storms and sunshine. Transformation isn't loud. It's quiet shifts, fewer self-insults, more encouragement, softer reactions to mistakes. Over time, that quiet builds strength louder than any praise. You don't need to believe every positive thought instantly. Doubt fades through evidence. Each time you act kindly toward yourself and survive, the mind learns it's safe to trust you. The strongest people are not those who never doubt, but those who never let doubt define their tone. Their inner language remains steady, even when life trembles. That steadiness is mastery. Your words are spells. Each one casts energy into your future. Speak with intention. Bless your path instead of cursing your pace. The voice inside you is the architect of your destiny. Build wisely. And in the end, transforming self-talk into inner strength means becoming your own encourager, your own healer, your own guide. You stop waiting for motivation because your words become it. When your voice turns loving, your life follows suit, because the most powerful conversation you'll ever have is the one you have with yourself. Chapter 10. You attract what you believe you deserve. Life mirrors belief. It doesn't give you what you wish for, it gives you what you expect. The energy you hold within your sense of worth. Your quiet confidence or silent doubt shapes every opportunity that finds you. The world reflects your inner standard back to you like a mirror that never lies. When you believe you deserve peace, you stop tolerating chaos. When you believe you deserve love, you stop chasing rejection. Every choice becomes a signal to the universe saying, "This is what I accept for myself." Belief is the architect of reality. Many think attraction is about desire, but it begins with identity. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you think you are. If deep down you feel unworthy, you'll unconsciously choose situations that confirm that belief. Healing begins when you start rewriting that identity. Your worth isn't proven through achievement or attention. It's inherent, unchangeable. But until you believe that, you'll keep seeking validation from people and places that can't hold it for you. Self-worth is not something to earn, it's something to remember. Beliefs are powerful because they shape perception. Two people can live the same experience and see two completely different worlds. One feels rejected, the other sees redirection. The difference isn't the event, it's the belief behind it. When you think small, life stays small. You stop reaching, stop asking, stop expecting. But the moment you expand your belief, life stretches with you. The universe meets you at the level of your faith, not your fear. Your energy introduces you before you speak. Confidence, humility, gratitude, they radiate silently. People feel them. The energy of someone who knows their worth doesn't have to demand attention. It naturally commands respect. If you believe love must hurt, you'll attract pain and call it passion. If you believe abundance is greedy, you'll unconsciously sabotage your prosperity. Life listens to the beliefs you whisper beneath your goals. You teach others how to treat you by what you tolerate. Every time you settle, you reinforce the idea that you deserve less. But when you hold your standard with grace, the wrong things fall away, making space for what truly aligns. Belief is invisible architecture. Every thought builds structure around your life, a home made of stories about who you are. If those stories are rooted in doubt, the house will always shake. Strengthen the foundation with truth. You are enough. Attracting what you deserve starts with clarity. You must know what peace feels like to recognize it. You must know what love feels like to receive it. Confusion attracts confusion. Clarity attracts alignment. You can't attract higher frequencies while living in self-criticism. The vibration of "I'm not good enough" blocks every blessing. But when you speak gently to yourself, life begins to echo that gentleness back. Every relationship you enter is a mirror, not of the other person, but of your self-belief. The way people treat you often reflects how you've been treating yourself. Raise your internal dialogue, and you'll raise the quality of your connections. To believe you deserve better, you must unlearn what taught you otherwise. Family, culture, past heartbreaks, they plant seeds of unworthiness. Healing means pulling those weeds and planting new truths. Abundance begins in mindset. If you believe there's not enough time, love, success, you'll live defensively. But when you believe in infinite possibility, you stop competing and start creating. Life listens to emotion more than words. You can say, "I'm confident," but if your energy whispers, "I'm scared," the universe answers the whisper. True belief is felt, not spoken. Every time you accept less than you deserve, you confirm the belief that less is all you can get. But every time you say no to what drains you, you tell life, "I'm ready for better." Belief is boundaries in motion. You attract from self-image, not self-talk. You can repeat affirmations, but if your self-image still sees failure, you'll keep recreating it. Change the picture in your mind. First words will then hold power. The energy of worthiness is calm, not loud. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't beg, it invites. When you know your value, You stop auditioning for places that can't see it. Belief turns obstacles into tests of faith. Instead of asking, "Why me?" you begin asking, "What is this teaching me?" That shift transforms hardship into preparation. Life grows you before it rewards you. Sometimes you block blessings because you secretly fear them. You want love, but fear vulnerability. You want success, but fear change. To attract what you deserve, you must be emotionally ready to receive it. Confidence is not arrogance, it's quiet alignment. It's saying, "I'm open to good things because I'm ready for them." You stop forcing outcomes and start flowing toward them. That's when synchronicity begins to appear. When you believe you deserve more, your habits start to change automatically. You rest better, eat better, speak better. You stop treating yourself as an afterthought and start honoring yourself as a priority. Your external reality always lags behind your internal belief. Be patient. When you shift internally, life takes time to rearrange. Don't mistake the delay for denial. It's alignment finding its way to you. You can't attract peace while living in self-doubt. Doubt is static. It blocks the signal. Confidence tunes you to the frequency of abundance. The clearer your self-belief, the louder the universe responds. Everything you desire already exists. Love, purpose, success. The bridge between you and it is belief. Walk that bridge daily by acting like someone who already belongs where they're headed. People who know their worth don't fear losing things. They trust that anything meant for them will stay effortlessly. That trust itself is magnetic. It pulls in exactly what aligns with their energy. To attract love, become love. To attract peace, live peacefully. Energy doesn't lie, it multiplies. You cannot attract what you continuously contradict in your behavior. Your belief defines your ceiling. If you think small, even blessings will shrink to fit your mindset. But when you expect greatness, life expands to meet your expectation. The universe rewards courage. Each time you act as if you're worthy, even before you fully believe it, you strengthen that belief. Confidence is built through evidence, not waiting. Believing you deserve happiness doesn't mean life becomes perfect. It means you stop sabotaging it when it arrives. You receive joy without guilt, success without fear, love without doubt. People mirror your energy. If you constantly apologize for existing, they'll forget your value. But when you move with quiet assurance, they begin to reflect it back. Respect is an echo of self-belief. To change your reality, stop asking for proof and start providing it. Show up differently, speak differently, move differently. Belief becomes visible through consistent behavior. Doubt is not your enemy. It's your teacher. It shows where faith needs strengthening. Each time you choose belief over fear, your energy recalibrates higher. What you tolerate today sets the tone for tomorrow. Every boundary is a signal to the universe. This is my new standard. Once raised, the universe cannot ignore it. Your reality shifts the moment you decide to stop earning what you already deserve. Worthiness isn't a reward. It's your natural state. All you have to do is believe long enough for the world to catch up. And in the end, you attract not by chasing, but by becoming. When your belief aligns with your truth, everything meant for you begins to flow naturally. Because the secret was never about luck, it was about alignment. You've always attracted what you believed you deserved. Now, it's time to believe in more. Chapter 11. The balance between loving yourself and loving others. Love is not meant to drain you, it's meant to expand you. But expansion only happens when love flows both ways. The balance between loving yourself and loving others is the sacred point where giving doesn't cost you your peace, and caring for others doesn't mean abandoning yourself. Most people confuse love with sacrifice. They believe to prove love, they must give everything: their time, energy, even identity. But love without boundaries becomes dependency, and dependency always leads to emptiness. True love nourishes both souls, not just one. You can't pour from an empty cup, yet so many try. They give and give until resentment replaces affection. Loving yourself doesn't mean you love others less, it means you finally have something real to give them. Self-love and love for others are not opposites, they are mirrors. The way you treat yourself teaches others how to treat you. When you respect your limits, you attract those who respect them too. The balance begins with awareness. Ask yourself, am I giving because I want to, or because I fear losing love? One leads to connection, the other to exhaustion. Love given from fear is never sustainable. True love includes honesty, not only with others, but with yourself. Sometimes we keep giving because we want to be seen as good. But real goodness isn't about pleasing everyone. It's about living truthfully, even when truth disappoints someone. Loving yourself is not selfish, it's sacred responsibility. It's making sure your own heart is whole enough to hold space for another without collapsing. Self-care is the maintenance of love's foundation. The more you love yourself, the healthier your relationships become. You stop demanding from others what you can now give yourself: validation, reassurance, safety. Love transforms from dependency to choice. Balance requires boundaries, not walls, but gentle edges that say, I care about you, but I also care about me. Those who truly love you won't be threatened by your boundaries. They'll be grateful for your clarity. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is not to save them, but to stand beside them as they save themselves. Love empowers, it doesn't rescue. When you neglect yourself in the name of love, resentment grows silently. You begin to keep score, counting sacrifices instead of shared joy. But when you balance care for self and others, love flows effortlessly, without conditions. Self-love gives love depth. It prevents you from confusing attention with affection, attachment with devotion. You begin to recognize the difference between love that heals and love that hurts. The more you understand yourself, the more compassionate you become toward others. Self-awareness dissolves judgment. You start seeing people as mirrors, not enemies, not saviors, just reflections of different lessons. Balance means knowing when to give and when to step back. It's understanding that love doesn't demand your constant presence. Sometimes it thrives in space. Too much giving can smother growth. Loving yourself helps you see love clearly. When your heart is empty, you call anything love just to fill the void. But when your heart is full, you recognize genuine connection without confusion. You cannot love someone into wholeness. You can only love them as they learn to heal themselves. Trying to fix others is how you lose yourself. Loving them as they are is how you stay whole. Self-love teaches detachment not from people, but from outcomes. You stop needing relationships to validate you. You love freely, not fearfully. That's where peace begins. When you balance love for self and others, you stop begging for reciprocity. You understand that your giving is your joy, not a transaction. Real love expects nothing but honors everything. Love becomes lighter when it's shared between equals. One person should not always be the healer, while the other always bleeds. Balance means both hearts contribute, one giving strength, the other offering trust. The love you give yourself sets the rhythm of your life. When it's rushed, everything feels chaotic. When it's patient, everything finds harmony. Self-love slows you down to a pace that love can sustain. Many people believe love means losing yourself in someone, but real love means finding yourself with them. It's a partnership of growth, not a contract of surrender. The deeper you love yourself, the less drama love brings. You no longer chase what confuses you or cling to what disrespects you. You choose calm over chaos because you finally believe you deserve peace. Balance means being able to say no without guilt and yes without fear. It's the sweet middle ground where self-respect and compassion coexist. You can stand firm without becoming cold. When you stop overextending for love, you discover how much of you was waiting to be reclaimed. Every boundary you set is a reunion with yourself. Every no, rooted in truth, becomes an act of love. The people meant for you will never be threatened by your self-respect. They'll celebrate it. Because the healthiest relationships are not made of sacrifice, they're built on mutual strength. Balance is also knowing when to walk away. Love should not cost your mental health, your dreams, or your sense of worth. When it does, leaving is not betrayal, it's self-preservation. Loving yourself deeply allows you to love without control. You stop trying to change people into who you want them to be. You start accepting them as they are, or gracefully letting them go. When love is balanced, silence doesn't feel like distance, it feels like trust. Space becomes sacred instead of scary. You no longer need constant reassurance because you've learned to reassure yourself. You cannot be the source of everyone's happiness. You can only be an inspiration for it. Love becomes easier when you release the burden of saving others and focus on embodying peace. The balance between loving self and others is maintained through honesty. Be honest about your needs, your limits, your feelings. Unspoken truths rot love from the inside out. Transparency keeps it alive. Love yourself enough to choose relationships that feel safe, not dramatic. Chaos may feel familiar, but peace feels like home. Once you experience calm love, you'll never settle for confusion again. Self-love doesn't isolate you, it strengthens connection. When you are grounded within, you no longer attach from fear. You meet others heart to heart, not wound to wound. Balance means giving from abundance, not depletion. When your own cup overflows, your love nourishes instead of drains. You become a source of light, not someone searching for it. You'll know you've found balance when you can be fully yourself around others without guilt or apology. You love freely because you no longer fear being misunderstood. Authenticity becomes your love language. Loving yourself and others equally requires practice. Some days you'll give too much, some days too little. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Awareness always brings you back to balance. Love becomes sacred when it's shared between two people who know how to care for themselves first. Because when both are whole, love is no longer about filling emptiness, it's about amplifying joy. And in the end, the balance between loving yourself and loving others is not a line to walk, it's a rhythm to dance to. Some days you lead, some days you follow, but always in harmony. Because love, at its purest, is not about losing yourself in someone, it's about finding more of yourself through them. Chapter 12. Living fully as the person you were meant to be. There comes a moment when pretending no longer fits, when the weight of expectations becomes heavier than the fear of being seen. That moment is your awakening. Living fully begins the day you decide to stop performing for approval and start living for truth. You were never meant to simply survive the days, you were meant to feel them. To walk through this life awake, present, and unafraid of your own depth. Every breath is a chance to choose authenticity over image, alignment over acceptance. The person you were meant to be has always been inside you, quiet, patient, waiting beneath layers of conditioning. Society taught you who to be. Life's pain taught you who not to be. But your soul knows who you are. Living fully doesn't mean having everything figured out. It means no longer abandoning yourself when things get hard. It's staying grounded when storms rise, trusting that even chaos carries purpose. You were born whole. The world convinced you that you were broken, that you needed fixing, proving, earning. But real freedom begins when you stop chasing completeness and remember, you already are it. To live fully is to live with intention. Every word, every choice, every silence becomes sacred when aligned with truth. Life stops being random and starts feeling like a reflection of who you've chosen to become. Many spend years running from their authentic selves because truth is raw. It strips away comfort and control. But only when you face your truth can you begin to live from power instead of fear. The person you're meant to be doesn't wait for permission. They act with quiet certainty, knowing that alignment is louder than approval. Every bold step toward authenticity reshapes the path beneath your feet. Living fully means making peace with your past. You cannot move forward carrying every wound as a weapon against yourself. Healing is not forgetting, it's freeing yourself from the need to relive pain. Your journey was never meant to look like anyone else's. Comparison is the thief of purpose. You can't walk someone else's road and expect to reach your destination. The map is written within. The person you were meant to be is not a future version, it's the most honest version. The one who exists when you stop performing, apologizing, or shrinking. You don't become them. You return to them. Living fully means embracing both light and shadow. You are not only the parts that shine, you are also the darkness that taught you how to find your own light. Integration, not perfection, creates wholeness. Every time you silence your voice to fit in, you lose a piece of yourself. The world doesn't need more imitation, it needs the truth of your expression. Your authenticity is someone else's permission to be real. The life you were meant to live feels peaceful, not performative. You stop chasing busyness as a badge of worth and start building a life that feels like breathing. Stillness becomes a sign of strength. Living fully means saying yes to your calling, even when it scares you. Purpose is rarely comfortable. It's often a fire that demands transformation. But in that fire, your greatest self is forged. You are not late, not behind, not forgotten. Life unfolds in divine timing. Every delay, every detour has been preparation for the moment you finally trust yourself enough to begin. To live as your true self, you must let go of roles that no longer fit. You are not just someone's child, partner, or label. You are an evolving consciousness, meant to experience this world fully awake. The world often rewards conformity, but your soul craves authenticity. Following the crowd may bring safety, but following your truth brings peace, and peace is the ultimate success. You are not defined by what you've lost, but by what you continue to give: love, effort, resilience. Every time you rise after falling, you prove that your spirit is stronger than your scars. Living fully is an act of courage in a world that thrives on distraction. It's the choice to feel deeply instead of numbing, to connect instead of escape, to be present instead of pretending. Your true self doesn't shout, it whispers. It guides you through intuition, quiet nudges, and moments of clarity. The more you listen, the more aligned your life becomes with who you really are. Living fully means letting go of outcomes. You stop chasing certainty and start trusting process. Growth is never linear. It's a spiral that brings you back to lessons with greater awareness each time. The person you were meant to be is fearless, not because they never fall, but because they no longer fear falling. They know failure is not an ending, it's a necessary bridge toward mastery. Every relationship you form reflects your alignment. When you live as your truest self, you naturally attract those who resonate with your frequency. Forced connections fall away, genuine ones flow easily. To live fully is to live open, open to love, to loss, to change. The more you close yourself off to avoid pain, the more life passes you by. Openness is vulnerability, but it's also vitality. You can't find meaning by chasing success alone. True fulfillment comes from alignment, when what you do, say, and believe all move in harmony. That's when life stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like art. The person you were meant to be doesn't seek control over others, only mastery over self. When your inner world is ordered, the outer world begins to follow your rhythm. Living fully means forgiving yourself for all the times you betrayed your own truth. Every yes you said when your soul screamed no was just a lesson in courage. Now you know better. Joy becomes deeper when you stop attaching it to perfection. Life will never be without problems, but peace comes from learning to meet each moment with grace instead of resistance. Living as your true self requires constant honesty. Ask, does this align with who I'm becoming? If not, release it. Everything you let go of brings you closer to who you really are. Sometimes, living fully means walking alone for a while. Solitude becomes the soil where authenticity grows. It's where you learn to love your own company without needing anyone's applause. To live fully is to trust your voice even when it shakes. Speak truth even when silence feels safer. Your courage gives permission for others to rise into theirs. The world may not always understand your evolution. People who loved your old version may resist your growth. But you were never meant to stay small to keep others comfortable. Living fully means living lightly, carrying lessons, not baggage. You begin to see life as experience, not punishment. Gratitude replaces bitterness, and freedom replaces fear. You are the author of your story, not a character trapped in someone else's narrative. Rewrite it as often as you need to. Growth doesn't make you inconsistent. It makes you alive. To live as the person you were meant to be is to live awake, aware of your power, present in your choices, and at peace with imperfection. Life stops being something you chase and becomes something you create. And in the end, living fully isn't about becoming extraordinary, it's about being real. The real, you flawed, fierce, gentle, growing, is already enough. The journey was never about changing who you are, but about remembering who you've always been. If you've reached this point, it means something inside you is ready to change, not for others, but for you. Loving yourself is not a destination, it's a daily practice. It's the quiet choice to speak kindly to your mind, to forgive your past, and to believe that you are worthy, even when the world forgets to remind you. The truth is, real transformation doesn't come from fixing yourself, it comes from accepting yourself. Every scar, every failure, every story you carry, they are not signs of weakness, but proof that you have lived. And the moment you stop fighting who you are, you begin to bloom into who you were meant to be. So, the next time you look in the mirror, don't look for flaws, look for truth. See the light that has survived every storm, because self-love isn't selfish, it's survival. It's the foundation upon which every dream, every relationship, and every ounce of peace is built. If this message touched your heart, don't just listen, live it. Let this audiobook be the reminder that you are enough, that you've always been enough. And if you wish to keep walking this path of growth, clarity, and healing, subscribe, stay connected, and keep choosing yourself again and again. Because when you learn to love yourself completely, you stop chasing love and start becoming it.